Hearing the story about in UK during World War II that Winston Churchill was I think just before Prime Minister, when UK was heavily not funded because they were participating in a war, and there was lack of public monies, and people were like, hey, we should shut down some of these arts programs and all of that. And he said, okay, we're fighting in a World War II. What are we fighting for? These are the things that we're fighting for, our civilization. We're fighting for something to protect. What are we protecting if you remove the funding from some of these things?
Gotta be there. I'm losing my cool. I'm on the edge. Something's taking over me. I'm gonna be down on my knees. I'm ready for this. You keep me begging for this.
This is the Ocio show with Rahul, where I have deep conversations with interesting people on topics that are meaningful, slightly personal, and perhaps controversial.
Roll with this. I can do this all day. I can do this all day. Back up, I'm gonna run this town. I'm headed for the top and you know it's going down.
Welcome to the Ocio show with Rahul. We are here with Joseph Walsh, principal dancer at the SF Ballet. So welcome, Joe, to the show.
Much. Thanks for having me.
We are going to talk about ballet, segment one. And you've been a professional dancer for a little bit. So how did you get into dancing?
Well, I've been a professional dancer since 2007. But before that, my sister was a dancer before I was born. She started, it was just like community theater kind of thing. And so I grew up going to her shows, watching her VHS tapes, and then kind of being then gifted down the VHS tapes that were of Baryshnikov and Nureyev and whoever else I was inspired by. And so I started to watch those and watch her shows, and my parents were actually working backstage at the Nutcracker.
This was in
Pennsylvania. I grew up in Doylestown, Pennsylvania for first 4 years of my life.
And they had a Nutcracker there?
They had a Nutcracker at the Badinsky School of Dance. And it was basically parents running the show backstage and, a couple teachers. But we... They would move the furniture around and do the snow bags up top above the stage for the snow scene and all that kind of stuff. So
did you help them out as a kid? Or
I was back there every single show with them, looking at how everything was moving and like understanding what made this magic happen after having seen it from the front as a kid. To then be gifted the opportunity to see how it's made, I think is quite informative to how I was immediately drawn into it. So there were a few moments like that, but I do remember, and maybe it's one of those memories that you have because there's a picture of it, but I just remember being in piles and piles of snow that was like microplastics to the nth degree. Just like little clippings of plastic that I was just diving around in, and just being like, I want to do that. And so that was kind of it. And so they put me into a school. So you wanted to be in the front, not really doing all the technical work that your parents did. I mean, I think I was inspired at the kind of team effort that it takes to put on a show. But really at that point, I was like, I want to play pretend. And I think that kind of exists now. I still live in this world of half of my day is playing pretend and making a story come to life and trying to find new angles to every story that we tell on stage. And so I think it just kind of, it lent itself to me seeing that, asking my parents, and my parents are just like absolutely the best anyone could ask for in terms of support and any sort of thing that I feel that...
Did they do theater themselves?
No.
When they were younger? Or
No.
How did they get into this whole theater?
I think my sister just, it was one of the extracurriculars that she did. And then they just, they're volunteers at heart, so they decided to volunteer.
Did your sister do this professionally afterwards? Or?
No, she stopped when she was 19, right as she went into college. I remember her last solo was this like beautiful lyrical solo in some gymnasium in Connecticut, and I was just like very sad, but also I was in that same moment feeling like this is now an opportunity. I had now seen, we moved up to Boston by that point. I had seen, I'd been doing like tap and jazz and modern dance and ballet all kind of equally.
This was in school or college?
This was like in elementary school. And so then I'm like moving up. The ballet career kind of starts at as soon as you can commit to it being a career. So it can be as early
elementary?
As early as for my wife, she left home at 11.
Okay.
And I left home at 13 to go to a boarding arts school.
Oh, wow. So where was this?
This was in Boston. So we had moved from Pennsylvania to Connecticut to Boston. For
your arts or just?
No, it was just like through parents' work. And then we got to Boston, and I had seen, my sister do all this stuff, and then we started to go and see Boston Ballet. And I saw the son of the mother that owned the school, the Badinsky School in Pennsylvania. He was performing as a soloist in Boston Ballet. And then it became this thing. Chris Badinsky. I want to go and see him dance. Like, I know somebody on stage.
But he was much older than you.
Yeah. Like, at this point, I was 9 or 10. By the age of 11, I had decided that I wanted, in the moments of being at home when extended family would come over or whatever, they'd say, oh, what are you going to be when you grow up? And I would start saying, I want to be a dancer. And they were all like, that's not a career. Yeah. But they were like, yeah, sure, put on a show for us. And I would just put on these like hour-long one-man shows of anything from, I made Titanic the ballet, which I'm very proud of. Yeah. Props and all.
All right.
A lot of Celine Dion in that. And like Grease the musical, ballet, whatever. I was just making up all
these.
Yeah, I was just
themes and stories.
I was just doing it, whatever was coming to mind and made me feel happy. I would just put on these shows in my living room, and then I'd be Drosselmeyer from the Nutcracker with my cape and all this kind of stuff.
Did your sister help you with the choreography and all that? Or
she would. I remember there was this one time that we were in we were like at a friend's house. They had a hot tub, and we were all in the hot tub. And she saw my feet, and she was like, point your feet. And like pointed feet is like a sign of like a good dancer. And she took my foot and she said, no, it has to be like this. And she started to like crack it in a good way. Like now that I know what that is. And so she was there to help me kind of find my path into a boarding arts school that kind of allowed me to see all sides of what dance could be, actually pushed me to really like investing in it and knowing that it's what I wanted to do. Yeah. So I went to a boarding arts school called Walnut Hill for the performing arts. It's outside of Boston, and it has all 5 majors of like a traditional art forms. So dance, music, theater, singing, visual arts, creative writing. So that was more kind of when I learned how to be a collaborative artist, and see how other artists make what they are, and finding themselves through their art form, finding individuality, which can be quite challenging in such a structured and technical art form as dance. So I feel like that has kind of inspired my career to be slightly more go with the flow and just embrace whatever a new choreographer is bringing into the space, and I can just be there for them to paint with as their
And do
medium.
most people who get into these professional dance and music, do they go to these boarding schools, or could generally people, I mean, are they day scholars, or like do they go to regular school and still do all of these stuff? Or
I think it kind of depends on where you're coming from.
like from ballet, for example, are there a lot of these boarding school kids that end up? Or
my wife and I both ended up at a boarding school. Hers was for ballet only, and it was much more of like a boot camp. They had really bad food.
Where was that?
Now that I said that, it's actually defunct now. It's the Kirov Academy in Washington, D.C., which put out some of our greatest dancers, currently this generation and prior. Unfortunately, they went under, but I think it's maybe for the best. It was a bit of a, not the greatest place to be.
Okay. And then...
But I mean, sorry, to answer your question, others just kind of come from, they just go through their little Dolly Dinkle studios, and then they just find their way into a company based on like a really great teacher or somebody that is connected to the dance world, that is like sees talent and says, you should push to do this, because there's not really that for that space in school, in like public schools or anything, for dance to be a part of it, like any other sport. So I feel like it's much more about the connections that you have and the people that can see through young talent and understand that actually has potential. Because not everyone does, and that's always a hard realization to come to as such a young adult when you are kind of deciding between becoming a professional dancer or going the traditional route, going to college, whatever. And I experienced all those things. Even within going to boarding arts school, I still had moments where I was applying to all the colleges that I wanted to go to and got some full ride scholarships to places, but simultaneously was given an offer to go to Houston Ballet for their second program, for their second company program.
This is after high school?
So this is high school, after high school. I went through middle school in Boston, or like outside of Boston, and it is not the friendliest place to grow up as a male dancer. I went through like a lot of bullying through middle school and stuff like that, but it's kind of this like double-edged sword where I'm getting bullied there, but then I'm getting praised at school, at ballet, because I'm one of the only men. I grew up as a privileged male dancer, but also a bullied kid in school because I wore tights. Everyone knew that. And, even at school, within the boarding arts school, sometimes I would feel little giggles or something from the audience of people that were like not used to seeing people in tights or whatever.
Even boarding art school, you stood out in some ways, or was it because I thought that would be more accepting and of arts and all of that?
There's literally just one show that I remember it happening, and it was a performance of La Bayadere, which I had to appropriate and wear a feather on my head, and like not proud of those moments, but there was this trajectory that I had of that part where we were learning off of a video from Paris Opera Ballet, and I was just like locked into that role more than anything I'd ever done. And I was so proud of the work that I'd done that I stepped out onto stage and did my pose and, whatever it was. And then there's a little puff of fog from the fog machine, and it's like, it like makes this noise, and I'm in tights, and like there's just like a tremendous giggle from the audience, like not like outward laughing, but like a ooh, yikes, like this is gonna be whatever. And that moment really, I remember being so disappointed and angry after the show, and like no friends could really like talk me through it. I was just like, I'm embarrassed. Everyone was laughing, and they're like, no, they were laughing at the fog machine. I was like, no, I think it was the whole thing, and I just feel a little bit turned off by the whole thing. But then did a few more shows of the same thing and found that I could get better within the performances, and better even if I was angry sometimes. Some of my best improvements came through disappointment and anger, because that really like lights the fire.
What do they say? The biggest teacher in life is sorrow.
Yeah.
Because you learn more from being down and under, unhappy and sorrowful than happy moments in life. Huh?
Nothing truer.
Yeah. And in your art, boarding school, you could have chosen any of the paths that you could have, music or theater, or were you only on the track for dance?
You apply as your, it's more like a college application. So you apply as your, or actually
main
as your major, yeah.
And you need to stick to it.
Yeah, but there were people that would, I knew some dancers that turned into creative writers, and theater majors that turned into dancers. And that was also inspiring to me to see, because it was like, oh, well, if this doesn't work out, I can just like, I can find something else.
Yeah. And when it comes to these, when you go to then join a troupe or, ballet troupe, so is that like an official choreographer who does this, or like, and then the dancers just follow suit, or is it a co-creation, or how does it work in terms of the creative sort of process?
So like the audition process to get into a company is probably the closest thing to like a movie-based ballet, like a ballet movie. Auditioning for a company is actually like what they show in those movies. Much of the other stuff, the days, like how days work, is exaggerated. But the auditioning part, putting a number on, being totally dehumanized. I remember the first audition and the only audition I did was Houston Ballet for like a big company. And it was a cattle call in New York. I went with one of my best friends from high school at the time. And she went first because it was like all women and then all men. And I was like, oh, good luck. Like this is going to be great. You're going to do great. And she walks in and they say, oh, actually everyone go back out into the hallway. And one at a time, you're going to step across in a diagonal, step arabesque, step arabesque, step arabesque, which is just like lifting the leg to the back. And that's all it is. And just showing this like very basic skill, going one direction across the floor and then going around the corner and going the other direction across the floor, out the door. And the out the door part was the person that was deciding if they were cut or not was stood there saying, you can go. You can go. Oh, you can stay for the second round. And so it's just like this absolute gut
show me
punch.
the basics, huh?
This gut punch. And she got out in that first round, and then I was just like, how am I gonna do this? I felt so
survivor's guilt on this.
yeah. And I was young for the professional age because I had skipped 8th grade in order to go into my boarding arts school early and to get out of the whole like Massachusetts bullying situation, because it was serious. And so I had the benefit of being like almost a year ahead. And so in that audition, I felt very like novice compared to all these other people that were from around the country going to New York, or even those from New York City Ballet that were there auditioning, and felt this kind of enormous pressure to be something more than I was. And those moments are just kind of, they expose you for who you are under pressure. So I didn't ever like to do ballet competitions, or I don't like to audition. I still don't like when a choreographer comes in and you have to do a whole cattle call-esque day. So to your question, the longest way to get there, on a daily basis, we'll get a new choreographer coming in every 3-6 weeks, whether they're setting or staging an existing piece, or they are building a brand new piece from scratch. They usually come in with an idea of casting. Everyone does their Instagram dives these days. And then oftentimes they'll have like a workshop day where it's just like 6 hours stood in a studio with 80 other people, either really embracing.
This is even if you're part of San Francisco Ballet.
Even now.
Okay.
Yeah.
You still have to audition for stuff?
It's like an informal audition. So you go in knowing that your job's not at risk.
Yeah. But not everybody gets selected for that particular production.
Exactly. So that is like they're casting for a ballet maybe of 8 people or 2 people, but they've got the entire company there to audition. And so that's not always, but it is often. And it really brings you back to that kind of mentality of, all right, do I rush the front of the room and do I try and be right at the front so everyone can see me? Or do I stay in the middle somewhere and like struggle because I don't have space to move and then I'm not showing my best self? Or do I go to the back, hide myself, but then also have space to try out stuff and have the ability to kind of make mistakes? And oftentimes I'll do either front or back. Middle is always uncomfortable.
Got it. And so are these choreographers former dancers, or are they?
Yeah, usually.
So is it like when they end their career they go choreograph, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think most choreographers are formerly dancers. I know of only like one that is really not a dancer, more of like an analyst and like a designer, and that's Wayne McGregor. I don't really know what his dancing history was, but it seems like he has found a way to kind of like decipher choreography in another realm where he'll just like kind of look at it more like a computer program, and move things around and talk about shapes. But most choreographers come in and they are moving bodies. They are people that like understand what we do on a daily basis. They're former dancers, sometimes colleagues, sometimes people from within the company currently dancing move into a choreographic role just for a couple months to create, and then they go back into dancing. So it kind of is. It's
mostly dancers going into the other profession. And who are these ballets generally? Kind of repeat sort of stories like Nutcracker, for example, or these people are coming up with new sort of stories or like new sort of themes on this, or how does that work?
I'd say we are currently in a place where most companies in the States and Europe would do, like half story ballets, which are 3-act, full-length story, a la Nutcracker, Sleeping Beauty, Swan Lake. Half of those, and then half newer contemporary ballets or kind of things from the archives sometimes. And those pieces are traditionally put onto a triple bill program, which is 3 smaller, shorter ballets with an intermission in between. So it's still a 3-act evening, but it's with completely different movement qualities or takes or approaches to each piece, which can be more like going to the MoMA as opposed to going to the Met.
The Met, yeah. So it's a little bit of... But there are people coming up with new acts all the time. I'm in this main sort of theater around the world, or...
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like recreation. So a lot of people will do their version of Nutcracker or something that hasn't been done for a long time. There are there are people that have kind of now shifted into the realm of almost like archaeological digs within ballet. So they'll go to some archive place in Russia or New York or whatever and pull out the original scripts of what a ballet was back in
Latin or something. I don't
it's
know
like
what they were
it's
written
like in like
but...
yeah, like sometimes it's not notated in a way that they can actually understand, or it's notation that they have to give to a specialist, because there is a version of notation for ballet. Not many people do it, but they'll look at all the little steps and be like, oh yeah, okay, so if I lower the leg a little bit, then it'll make it the style that was done back in the 1800s or whatever. So there's that kind of really, really traditionalist and almost like trying to get back to the purest form of what it was. And then there's, kind of like a Baz Luhrmann who comes in and redoes Romeo and Juliet and makes this classic, tragedy into something that is so, I don't know, it's like so relatable because of what you're looking at, because it's put into a different lens. And we're kind of in the IP world in ballet where there's these existing stories, and either you do the old version or you figure out a new one. So I'm very lucky in San Francisco to be a part of a company that does a little mix of all of it. And I think
best of all worlds.
Yeah.
I was looking up some of the ballet societies. Like, so what's your sort of favorite? I think ballet started in Italy. Catherine Medici started. I was looking over the history.
You know more than I.
The courts of back of the Renaissance, and she, with the Medici family, that was a royal family, and putting up these plays or shows for the aristocrats of that time, and that evolved into ballet from Italy to France.
Louis the 14th.
Louis the 14th. The oldest one, I guess, is Paris Opera Ballet.
Paris Opera.
And then, so what's your sort of favorites in the world? And or what's the ones that people think they've reached the pinnacle of their career in this sort of field?
I mean, I want to say, I'm kind of lucky to be in a place that is one of those. So
San Francisco Ballet, it's one of the oldest, I think,
1933.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I Googled. I was like, okay, 1933, and New York City Ballet was like 1948.
Yeah, so it was later.
So we are actually
American theater ballets later as well.
Yeah.
Of course, Paris is 1600 something, but or 16, 17.
We have it's a totally different. Yeah. We're nascent compared. But I think that I grew up watching these videos of Baryshnikov and Ethan Stiefel and Marcelo Gomez. There's like a million different people that I grew up watching that I aspired to be. None of them really were. It wasn't really about the company they were in. It was more about the dancing that I was seeing. Although, like Paris Opera and Royal Ballet.
Other than San Francisco, you think probably Paris is sort of very desirable, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
London.
Yeah. And, when I was 12, I went to London, and we were on a trip, and just like on a kind of whim, my parents were like, do you want to go to the Royal Ballet School? And then they contacted Royal Ballet, and I was able to audition, and they accepted me. And so there was a moment where I contemplated before going to high school, maybe I move to London, maybe I do that. But, as much as I know people from there now and have danced with them, have worked with them, and love them to death, the vibe was just a little bit less inviting, I'd say. I mean, a boarding arts school is like a big warm hug in like a knit sweater. And you're going to learn how to knit that sweater. Like that's a boarding arts school with multiple facets, and just a pure ballet school is so intimidating. Seeing these people that were pulled from school like footballers are pulled from here. Yeah. You know, like there's an aspect in Europe that is actually looking at the career and bolstering the art by bringing in good talent, and so there's much more of a legacy there.
Yeah, same thing. There's an analogy in sports as well, I think, where I think China started winning all these Olympic medals because there are people going around these cities and towns around China picking kids who are like 9, 10, or even earlier. Hey, these are Olympic hopefuls, and they put them in an Olympic training facility, and that's what their life is the next whatever years, 10, 15 years of their life.
I did a competition. The only competition I did was in 2007, and it was the first time in Beijing that they had a ballet competition. It's still going now, but it was the first year, and it was absolutely terrifying to go to a place to see how hard those kids were working. And I don't know if they had an option to do it, but like I now dance with a lot of people that are from China or had grown up there, and they are just like absolutely the best technicians I've seen. And it is this kind of like this sense of the culture is pushing them forward rather than just themselves. They have that drive behind it, and that's why they can make it here. But that initial push and that filter, that does not exist in America yet. So,
and how's that? I mean, growing up, or at least whatever little I knew about ballet, there was a lot of Russian influence on like the way we thought about ballet. At least I thought about ballet in terms of it was all, or maybe it's the media. It was is that a popular sort of general? I see a lot of Russian kids. Most Russian kids I know always did ballet growing up in Russia.
Yeah,
it was like a thing to do.
I feel like
the girls, especially if you're a girl. Do you see a lot of that in your sort of art?
Yeah, I mean, I've danced with a lot of Russians, and I've worked with a lot of Russians that have choreographed. Yuri Pasakov has choreographed on me many times. He choreographed a ballet on me called The Swimmer. That was my first year in the company. It was in 2015. And it was based around his version of the short story, The Swimmer, that follows this, kind of aloof father, or I think he's a father, yes, that is trying to find his way in the 60s. And he goes from swimming pool to swimming pool, and like in that finds the way to like, resolve whatever the story is. And Yuri transposed it, having lived here through the 90s, and like he really embraced the San Francisco culture and American culture, but he's always been, this like outsider with a thick Russian accent. But to see him choreograph this ballet, then he started to use music from Tom Waits and kind of this kind of iconic American imagery of the Nighthawk, the painting, or The Graduate, and all of these things that he felt made what American culture was to him. So I felt like that was just like a really cool thing to see a really traditionalist Russian come from the Bolshoi ballet and then kind of let loose and find freedom in not being ashamed of
the culture,
saying this is where I grew up and this is now where I am, and they can commingle. Yeah.
Okay, switching topics a little bit on ballet. So you're a dancer for sort of ballet. How important is like fitness in your line of work? What do you do for fitness? Do you just dance, or do you have to like do other stuff generally?
as I pick up my NA beer. I feel like that is like a classic question of, it's more so I think people ask, what do you eat? Do you not, you must have to watch what you eat, all these kinds of things. Which is truer and truer every day as I get older. You know, like as we get older, our metabolism changes, everything shifts. But you know, for me, ballet is such a good workout. But as pains and injuries accumulate over the years, you have to find cross training in order to kind of balance out the contortions that we put our body through on a regular basis. And that builds muscles in a certain twist. And so I try to use stretching and deep tissue massage and a little bit of Pilates. Rowing is a really great cross training for me. Elliptical, like just honestly.
Like rowing machine or like real rowing?
Machine. That was a pandemic purchase. But those things that can they work my body the opposite way, and then I feel more freedom when I'm needing to kind of contort again.
Is that generally what a lot of the other dancers do? Do they just do the ballet, or do they do cross training generally? Or
yeah, I mean, there's like also this like extreme fitness class called Hammer Time by Lisa Giannoni, who is an SF local, has active care, and so she's kind of like our physical therapist go-to, but also she does this Hammer Time class, which is like 90s aerobics to like the absolute max, where you're doing like minutes of planks in a row and squats and jumps and whatever else, things like that I can be moving my body and just like losing the ability to think through exhaustion. These are kind of the meditations that we go through as dancers. And so like if I can find that outside of dance, that's often something that I will be drawn to, because it's that meditation that I find within. Yeah.
So you said Hammer Time. We can link it in the show notes for.
Lisa, people should go.
Lisa
Giannoni.
So, okay, coming to there are like few three. I think of it as three sort of sections. One is the rehearsal, the performance day, and sort of the off days, right? So, walk me through what a typical, let's say, rehearsal day is in the life of a dancer is generally.
So off season, we have an on and off season in San Francisco Ballet, especially. Like the whole summer and fall is spent just in the studio. Occasionally we do a tour in October sometime, but usually we spend the entire time rehearsing for the upcoming season, which is January to May. And then when January to May happens, you basically become like a Broadway person, where you're just like only at the theater for your entire week.
And is there another performance season other than the Jan to May? Winter? Or?
I mean, winter is Nutcracker. So that's really the
December.
beginning. Yeah.
And so there's nothing between May and December, generally?
Just like occasionally we tour. We have a Stanford performance now that we've been doing for the past 3 years.
We do Stern Grove, I think, right? For summer.
We did Stern Grove, but now it seems that we're switching with Stanford. I don't know. Stern Grove was always a really tough spot, because you don't have time to your rehearsal, your like dress rehearsal is with a bunch of people watching, because everyone's already put their blankets down.
Yeah.
The orchestra, you can kind of hear them. It's like really windy. It's usually foggy, cold, all those things. There's no wings. We put up bamboo bushes, and those were the wings. And so it's like that's a real like trial by fire. Stanford is a much more comfortable, like you go into the dressing rooms there, and it's like, oh, there was like a rock star here last week. This is really cool. But yeah, so a day.
During rehearsal. So what happens? Like, during
during the rehearsal season, is we work Monday through Friday, so we have like a very 9 to 5-esque job during this time of the year. And I will now wake up, take my daughter to school, and then go straight to work around 9. And I warm up for an hour doing whatever kind of cross-training fitness things that I do, stretching. And then we all take class together. Class is just a general warm-up of a bar and a center where you do aspects of ballet the entire class, kind of taking turns when you get into center, like groups at a time. And then you have like a 20-minute break. And from 11:30 to 3:30, you have 3 hours of rehearsal, or 11:30 to 2:30, and then from 3:30 to 6:30, you have another.
Is with the choreographer
whoever's in town working on whatever they're doing. Occasionally we're splitting time between anywhere from 1 or 2 ballets to, in the craziest times, we've had 12 ballets going on at one time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And you are performing in all of them?
Usually you're in a portion of those, but even so, just to have that many choreographers or dancers or whatever working on hearing all the different musics in the hallway, it's a really fascinating building to be in when it's so creative and powerful.
What happens when it is performance season? Or like during
performance season just turns into like everyone's like holding on to their hats, and if you can make it, you can make it. We basically just put together a show like 1 or 2 weeks in advance, have some rehearsal, then put it onto stage for like 2 days, 2-3 days, and then we perform. And then while we're performing, so we'll have shows Tuesday through Sunday. We wake up, we finish our performances. I get home at like 11. Depending on the ballet, you could get home at 11:30. It's like late.
We start at what, 6 something?
We start at, the shows usually start at like 7:30. But we start the day, because of this truncated schedule, we start the day at like 10 again. And we go in, we do class, and then you're rehearsing from 11:30 to 5 o'clock sometimes, and then the show's at 7.
So you have to rehearse on the day of the performances as well, generally?
Yeah, but we're rehearsing, occasionally we're rehearsing the same thing, but we're also rehearsing the next program that's about to go on. So you're in two completely different compartments of your brain, the learning brain and the performing brain. And the adrenaline has not really worn off by the time that you're getting home, so you can't get to sleep until late, and then waking up in the morning, everyone's like got these bags under their eyes, everyone looks constantly hungover, but no one's had a drink, that's just what until they have their stage makeup on, then you're like, okay, I'm awake for the day. So you really wake up at 7 o'clock after having like just dragged yourself through the day.
And this, do you mix up these routines? You have 12 going on. Like, how do you even like keep up with?
You can.
Have you ever mixed up your routines?
Yeah, for sure. It's not necessarily as much mixing them as it is blanking. Yeah. So like, I remember like after having my daughter, it was basically we had her in October. Yeah. And then we went straight into like, by the time that we were in studio, in season, I was, she was a 3-month-old, 4-month-old, 5-month-old. And these are not times that you sleep, right? And so I was going on stage with, 3-4 hours of sleep, and maybe a 20-minute nap or a meditation or whatever before the show, just to get a little boost. And I felt so free that season because I was like, there's literally nothing I can do to rest more. Like I'm doing all I can at home to get rest. And I had this kind of like disembodied version of myself where my brain was not having any nerves. Like I felt quite confident because there was no extra energy. Being tired when you're dancing is actually sometimes quite helpful when it's a new role or it's something that's really scary. It kind of it zaps out the nerves in some ways. So I feel like that was like one of the greatest revelations was like, I can be a dad and a dancer and no sleep.
I'm sure people are going to look this up on how to be a dad and a dancer. And then, you perform 6 days in a week then during the performance season, Tuesday to Sunday, and then you just get Monday off and then back to the grind?
Yeah. As a principal, I have the privilege to not always be on for every show. There's a portion of the company, the core and most of the soloists are on for much of the performance season. Like for instance, in Nutcracker, a lot of the core women will get maybe 1 or 2 shows off out of almost 40 shows this year. So it's a lot. But as a principal, I get time away because there's other casts to do the leads each night. So I'll do 4 shows out of 8 or something like that.
What's the difference in different characters in a ballet? Like you said, principal, then there is soloist, there's dancers. Like what are the different sort of cast and crew for this ballets?
It's mostly principal dancer is like your lead characters, the protagonists usually that you're looking at. There's also principal character artists who are like oftentimes former dancers, retired, sometimes on staff with us as coaches or stagers, and they will do something like the king and the queen or like the father, and then the principals do all those like kind of main bits where they're also partnered together. So you'll have long pas de deux and things like that.
But do they have like more airtime during the ballet?
Oh yeah, there's definitely like you're kind of.
Aren't you supposed to be actually working more if you're a principal on some of these shows?
The shows that you are doing are
intense, but then you have multiple principals. Then
and then so then you look at a soloist, and they are more the featured dancer in a part that's just them dancing by themselves. Or they're partnering but just for a little bit, or they're like, second on the list for characters. So, you can have a best friend as the prince in Cinderella, Ben, and that Ben is usually a soloist.
Got it.
And then the core is just like the swans. The shades, every ballet that has the most iconic moments and those kind of like soul wrenching, like how can a mass of humanity do something like that all together? That's the core, and they are really the foundation of like every ballet company, especially a traditional ballet company that does story ballets. Because there's no show, there's no spectacle without them, because they support and bolster everything that we do, and they're also helping us to tell the story. There's a bunch of villagers around as you're doing a solo. I'm doing a solo, and I'm dancing around, and I'm doing my manège or whatever, and I can hear. There's a few dancers that would always be like, yeah, you got it, go, go, go. Like they're like talking under their breath, but they're like supporting. And there's this kind of team, one for all for one.
And the chorus, like, what do you say, the background? Are these...
They're like ensemble, yeah.
Ensemble, okay. And how, like for a Nutcracker, like how many people are generally like principals and let's say soloists and core?
So there's usually 2 or 3 principals per. No, let me see. Snow King and Queen, those are both usually principals, but Nutcracker is special because there's more casts of Nutcracker even. So oftentimes people from the core or soloists will be given this opportunity to go into a higher ranked role. But traditionally, a corps can be like 24 women, maybe 15 men. Sometimes it's 32 women, like whatever. Usually it's like most of the men are on because there's just like a slightly less
number of
and soloists maybe 10, 18.
Yeah.
I like don't even know right now currently where we're at, but and then principals 10 maybe, like it's a pretty
What's the shelf life of some of these dancers in ballet generally? What's the
Let me just check what's my date? What's my what's my sell by?
What's your expiry date?
I tend to be like it feels like a
loaded question.
It's a loaded question, especially right now. I'm 35. 10 years ago I left Houston Ballet. I was there from second company into apprentice, into corps, into soloist, into principal. Like I did all the ranks in Houston, and then I left.
How long did you work there?
I worked there for 8 years. I then left, and because at 25, I just thought to myself, if I don't leave, I probably won't, because it was a very comfortable company to be in. They taught me everything I know, and have such a dear place in my heart for them, and they continue to inspire me from afar. But at 25, it was like, okay, it's now or never. And then I took the leap. I came to San Francisco Ballet and I took a demotion into soloist. I joined, and 3 weeks after I joined, I was in Paris for a month performing what I was supposed to do was 3 ballets that I had been like cast to do. By the end of the tour, I had done 9 ballets. So there was 6 ballets that I was not prepared to do, that I had to on the fly kind of learn and just do it. We came back, we were rehearsing Nutcracker. So this is still my first few months in the company. And Helgi in the hallway one day, my old director, I asked him a question about how would you say something in ballet mime? So I was asking him, do I say, I am grateful for you, or I'm grateful for you, or whatever, like whatever it was. It's like these pedantic things that we do. And he looked at me, and then he looked down the hallway, and there were a bunch of principal men all in the hallway, kind of like goofing around, whatever. And he said, okay, everyone gather around. And he gave me a promotion right there on the spot, which was really cool. So I didn't even have to do a season as a soloist here, which was a really big boost for my morale. But I came in and was promoted that quickly because there were a lot of men that were just about to retire. So there were 3 dancers, Pascal, Gennady, and Joanne, that were just some of the most like legendary names to have come from San Francisco Ballet, and I was so like proud to be dancing with them. And then that same year they were retiring. And so they had this beautiful retirement show, and they were 39, 40, and 42. Okay. And so like that is my kind of...
Yeah, you got about 5 more years? I don't know.
If I could have 5 more years, I would be so happy.
Cool. Yeah.
I'd be so happy.
What do they do post retirement generally, or like getting off of the...
A lot of people will stay in the art form. So there are people that will start their own school, or go and teach at a school, or continue on in the company that they're at as a different role. So oftentimes they'll pick up and start to coach ballet within the company that they're from. Some people start choreographing, go into a different place, and then being a young retirement age, 40 or however young, a lot of dancers that don't dance until they absolutely can't walk, they'll retire at a more reasonable age, at like in their 20s or late 30s.
Do they pay you pension at the ballet?
We have like a retirement plan, but it's not.
But it's self-funded.
Yeah, it's not like it's matched. It's matched.
It's matched. Yeah.
But it's not
401k match.
No, in Europe you work at a place for 10 years and you get pension. Here you work for 10 years and you get the benefit within the contract to know that if they want to let you go, they have to tell you a year in advance, which is actually quite lovely and like a good production.
You can't get that for private jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It was interesting. Like I was, always curious about what people do after when they're in these professional, like even pro sports or pro, dance or like, a lot of them would have, they move to the business side of whatever they're doing in arts or dance and start a dance school or like start like if it's a basketball players, with that money buy something and stuff like that. But yeah, people, it's interesting what people do after retirement. Huh? So what?
And that's to not to say that like I do know dancers that are lawyers, doctors, you name it. Like it's a very transferable skill. The amount of time we've put into this, we can very easily transfer that.
You think they do that after
sit down doing it instead?
Retirement or just they are already lawyers and
no, they do it after. So it is kind of the benefit of this like second life. We have we have a first death and a second death, right? And as a dancer, our first death is at the end of our career.
Yeah.
And so it does give us the opportunity to have another space or opportunity at the same time as that is an absolutely paralyzing decision.
Yeah, I look forward to you sitting for bar, Joe, after your retirement.
I wish. Yeah, maybe.
So I want to talk about sort of the gender and sort of ballet and all that. So I had a friend who performs at Melbourne Ballet and just having a drink, and she was just telling me that, there's not a lot of men who come. I mean, they're fine, but and even then, it's a very it's easier to find women than men in this field. Is that generally your experience that you in this field as well, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is, I think one of my favorite stories about like how I started was from my parents when they were calling the school that I ended up attending just to get me into some community classes. Like this is before going as a boarding student. They called and they said, our kid wants to take class. They've been taking, somehow the fact that I was a boy never came up. And the teachers that they were talking to were like, I'm sorry, we're all full up. We're absolutely at our limit for new students. Try us again next year. And they're like, all right, well, he'll just have to go somewhere else. And they're like, excuse me, did you just say he? And then it was like, he can come today. And it's like, wait, that is the privilege.
I don't feel elated or offended by that, but
yeah, no, I mean, I think that it is the privilege of being a male dancer at the same time as you might be getting bullied somewhere, but
you're like,
then you go and you're surrounded by a bunch of like hardworking women and girls as a student and teachers that are looking at you more often than some of the females, and so it's hard to be kind of
a privilege there as well.
Yeah. So you have to just embrace that and know that, like,
and she was also telling me, like, especially if you're male and not gay, that's like ultra privilege in this community. Apparently,
this is one of the growing up in a boarding arts school. I think I was probably one of like 4 out of the entire school that was identifying as straight.
So I'm sure, this is like you won the ballet lottery. So we come to the end of this segment. So you And during the performance, like how does, like what are some of the satisfying moments for you as a dancer or performer? Like what are generally satisfying, but also what has been your sort of moments in your ballet career?
I think that, like, it's really hard because there is this kind of blackout that happens when you're in that adrenalized state of going on stage and just giving in to what you've rehearsed. So there's a dissociation from my normal memory that ballet and performance exists in. So like to pick out one specific show or anything like that, like all the firsts of anything really stand out because those are gonna...
You work very hard to get there.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Do that, and it's an achievement.
But oftentimes it is not necessarily the applause or anything like that. It's like, it's the quiet conversation that you have with somebody that just like really, finds you at a little after the show, and they just pull you aside and they say, like, what you just did is something that I've been needing in my life, and you've gotten me through X, Y, and Z. And and for me, like, just to be like literally Joe Blow working in San Francisco Ballet, thinking to myself, like, I don't know who's here. It's just like, whatever. And then to know that you are actually affecting somebody the same way that if I were to meet, I don't know, whoever my idol is, I would say the same thing. And so there is this kind of like bizarre aspect to, occasionally it can really feel like monkey with the cymbals. Like I feel like that sometimes because it's like you're just putting on the show and you have to do this for the people that are paying for it and all these different things. But then when it comes down to it, you really are affecting change in some people's lives, because this is something that is taking them away from the
mundane realities and harshness of life.
Exact harshness, I think, is like,
because people want to escape the realities of life sometimes.
And then the actual moment after every show, not every show, but the ones that I have time to get off stage, take a shower, and we have a little mini fridge in our dressing room, which is like so lush. It's like, really, that's the pinnacle.
Luxuries of life.
Yeah. I will grab our dresser oftentimes will stock us with whatever beer he wants to buy that day. So he'll throw a 6-pack in there sometimes, and I'll just get in the shower, cold or hot, whatever that old building has to offer. I'll get into that shower and just crack that beer open, and it is like, there is nothing like knowing that you've just put on a show for 3 hours, and the 6 hours leading up to that, you've been stretching and warming up and going over and doing and it's just a constant battle with yourself to get to the other side, and then like you're stood there being cleansed of all of that stress and like taking a sip of a beer on an empty stomach. It's like nothing quite hits like that.
Well, on that note, we're going to end the segment here, and we'll come back after the break.
Cool.
Welcome to our second segment of our conversation with Joseph Walsh. So, Joe, ballet is an art form. Let's talk about arts. Where do you think arts is growing up, artist, dancer in America? Are there a lot of kids opting in for dance and arts these days? Like, where do you think the place of arts is in our society today?
I think access to a visual medium such as ballet has exponentially increased in the past 10 years with social media and YouTube and like archival footage coming up onto YouTube that you could have only seen if you went to New York to go to the public library to search through the archives to find that one random performance that's like without audio of some famous ballerina that only did it once, you know? So there is this kind of ability to access that is far more advanced than anyone that's currently dancing
any time
had.
in history.
Anytime in history, yeah, obviously. But it's like that I think has kind of exposed the I don't know. It's a really like it's a struggle for me because it's bringing in a lot of talent and a lot of people that wouldn't have had access to it do. But on the other end of the spectrum, there is the people that are just performing to perform on social media. So there's an aspect of the ballet or like the dance form that has kind of shifted into that world, and then it's like you see that person dance live and it's like, oh, that's not at all what they look like online.
They did auto-tune on dancing or something.
Exactly. Like there's this kind of like editing ability for a live art form that had never existed. And so I think that there's benefits to it because it's bringing in new younger dancers. But I wish that they would understand that you come into the studio and you leave that old tech, that new tech behind, and you just think about old tech, old technique, old ballet technique. You know,
are there a lot of people doing like ballet and opera, or are they picking and choosing some at a young age?
The opera in SF, they have a lot of former professional dancers that were like just in a dance company that then transition into opera. But I'd say, I mean, obviously ballet started as like as an entertainment, like intermingling with opera. I find that I still struggle to go and see operas sometimes just because of there not being that like movement to the music that I'm hearing. I really have to like just
have to have people moving around.
Just like separate the two things and be like, that person should not be dancing right now. They should be singing very loudly like they are. Like, that's it.
Got it. And do you collaborate in your work with people outside of America in your sort of line of work? And if yes, what do you see are the differences between, say, the arts and dance forms here versus outside of America?
Yeah, I mean, I've especially since coming to San Francisco, I've had the opportunity to work with many more living choreographers that are from Europe or wherever. Specifically, Liam Scarlett is somebody that I worked with in my time here in San Francisco, and he has since passed away, but he was one of the most transitional into like finding. I had to find that I could bring myself into whatever new work was being done, and he really helped me find that. So he saw me perform in Paris my first year, immediately was decided that I should be one of his victors in Frankenstein. So Frankenstein was a new ballet that he was creating, and he was doing a co-production between Europe at Royal Ballet in England and with San Francisco Ballet. And so over the course of 2 years, we kind of built this ballet where we were on tour in China, and then from China, San Francisco Ballet like flew just me and my partner and Lauren and a ballet. Lauren's my wife. A ballet, one of the coaches Felipe Diaz. And we were brought in as kind of almost like an exchange program where they had started some of the work for Frankenstein, building with their Victor and Elizabeth, the two leads. And then Liam brought me and Francis Chung. And we then were like in and amongst dancing with Royal Ballet principals, creating a ballet together, collaborating, struggling, figuring it all out. And so we built much of the pas de deux work within that, and a lot of the first act scenes all together, which was like so moving to me that it just, made me feel really like it was very special.
Do you think, let's say, principal for Royal Ballet or principal here, are they sort of doing similar work, but is that sort of attitudes and the life and all of that similar generally around the world in terms of different cultures and ballets?
I think,
or is it different in different?
I think it's interesting. Like right now, we're in a transition phase. I think for Europe, right when I first started in 2007, it was like Europe is the place to be. You gotta go there if you want to do anything new. You gotta like be there to be seen, to be on the whatever, But I think over the years, probably social media, probably just like ballet in America kind of growing up very quickly. Like there's been this kind of surge in popularity, whether it's from like one choreographer that like puts out a video and then it makes ballet feel like it's the norm. So I think that there's like there's more kinship between Europe and the US, as opposed to if we had this conversation 5-10 years ago. I would have said, oh God, like Europe is just they're like pushing the limits, and they are. There's still a lot of experimental choreography happening that is government funded, but that government funding is slowly waning in all of those countries, and we feel that when we hear from colleagues that work there, that are under umbrellas of an opera house, and so there's one director for the entire opera and ballet, as opposed
like
to
to split the monies on this.
So there's this kind of like they're struggling to find the new route.
Do you think it's still like people get paid better in Europe, or is it more flipping to other parts of the world?
I think it kind of depends on the contract you find yourself in, but I do think that like Europe is a much more like, here's your salary, here's what you get, and also you're gonna get a pension at some point. So like,
what I've heard is that if you're somebody in opera said, if you're not the lead but like the core team, you're much better like financial position in Europe than in America. It's I'm sure the leads probably get a lot of money, but like,
I mean, we got a $60 million donation last year for brand new works, for continuing just the trajectory of where San Francisco Ballet has been going, and that is like, it was a news story for a while, like for a little bit, and that was like fascinating to see that living in San Francisco finally paid off. As a company.
$60 million.
Yeah, I'm like, finally, these tech guys are coming. No, I have no idea who even gave it, but it is that aspect of people seeing the value in the arts in America, and understanding that we don't have government funding, and we probably will have less government funding in the next couple of years, but that the fact still remains that we are the escape, and people want to be there with us to see what we're making.
And it's interesting about some of these government fundings. Like I was hearing the story about in UK during World War II, that Winston Churchill was the I think just before Prime Minister, when UK was heavily not funded because they were participating in a war, and there was lack of public monies, and people were like, hey, we should shut down some of these arts programs and all of that. And he said, okay, we're fighting in a World War II. What are we fighting for?
Mm-hmm.
Like, these are the things that we're fighting for our civilization. We're fighting for something to protect. What are we protecting if you remove the funding from some of these things? And I thought it drove home on what are things important and what are things not important in a society, that and where you put money in a society actually determines what you actually prefer as a society, or you value as a society, in my opinion, right? So
I wish that was where
the case
we found
with
ourselves
the next 4 years too, huh?
We'll see.
In sort of art scenes, Broadway and all, I'm just mixing up the performing arts here. Is there sort of a very huge difference between the east of this country, middle of this country, and the west of this country, and so how do people, artists and dancers and all that view?
Yeah.
There's Broadway, there's LA, there's Hollywood.
Yeah,
there's everything in between, right?
Yeah, there's like Broadway commercial dance. So like those are two aspects that are kind of like within like maybe a more accepted environment commercially. And then there's East Coast dance, which is New York City Ballet, American Ballet Theater, Boston Ballet, Washington, D.C., and then it's really like San Francisco Ballet. That's all they got. No, San Francisco Ballet, Pacific Northwest Ballet, they're fantastic as well. Yeah. And then in the middle, you've got a lot of regional companies, with Houston Ballet and Joffrey being really basically like second to the East and West Coast, but only because of numbers. I think that the work that they're putting out is to the degree that we are, but it's just a matter of funding and getting the productions and the exciting newness that exists within our world, and that pulls in new audiences. Yeah. I think for me, East Coast was kind of the pinnacle, this New York City Ballet, ABT thing, but then like getting into the weeds of it as a professional dancer in Houston, I was realizing I really wanted to do a good mixture of classical and new. And
the New York was more classical, would you say?
New York City Ballet is like, it's based on Balanchine technique, which is George Balanchine, the founder, kind of devised his own way of dancing, choreographed 1 million ballets with that technique in it, and that is kind of the structure of that company. And then now they have Justin Peck, who's honestly one of the most like revelatory dancers, choreographers that I've ever worked with in my life. One of my best friends, really a great guy. He is now kind of like their pinnacle in City Ballet. He choreographed for West Side Story, for Steven Spielberg, like the newest version. He's done a bunch of random stuff that's incredible, but he's kind of like what defines New York City Ballet in this new era. ABT has, I think, struggled a little bit in finding its ability to continue doing just the story ballets, but then like put in a few new things. But I think like City Ballet has just such a grasp on that newness that ABT can kind of falter for that. I think that San Francisco Ballet was really built from the ground up and then redesigned when Helgi Thomason took over. And he kind of deciphered and defined what this American regional company does, which is the full length and the story ballets and the mixture of new and old and rounding out the profession as opposed to just being like real stark about this is what we do and this is what we're good at. He wanted everyone to be able to dance everything, and that has been the case for many of those companies around the world that have tried to kind of mimic this and approach that a dancer is like a chameleon and they should be able to fit into any shoe and into any role and into any part that they're asked to do. So I feel like we're in a gold rush town, and this is just like yet another thing that has come from San Francisco that is kind of unexpected from this kind of, you know, we're late in the day, you know, we're 3 hours behind, we're from New York, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, San Francisco is a melting pot of different cultures and different nationalities and, you know, places, and generally more open-minded about new stuff, I would say. So I'm not surprised that, you know, there's more openness to traditional and sort of some of the newer forms here. How is it? You know, you're not a techie in San Francisco. You're an artist. How is that life? You know, a lot of people. I mean, I was in tech before, and you know, people are very. They've probably no understanding of how that side of the world lives.
Honestly, like
is that.
We were talking about it last night. I was talking about it with my wife last night. I was like, every single tech person that I speak to, it's like, I ask them what they do, and they say, I'm in the tech world, and then it's like an ellipsis that either they answer or they don't. And the answer usually is some like, you know, I just like engineer or something, blah, blah, blah. There's like a kind of run-on sentence that exists in the tech world that is this kind of catch-all of what they do. And it enforces this they, you know, like, because I think as an artist in this city, there's we are what makes, although I'm in a performance art that is extremely, you know, like an elite form of performance art, there's such a ground swell at a constant, you know, constant bubble in San Francisco that is this like, you know, project that kind of comes out of nowhere or something that you're not expecting. And that's still happening, but it's just, it feels a little like stifled by, you know, obviously economics and all that kind of stuff that lends itself to supporting artists and being able to have the freedom to keep being weird and funky and whatever San Franciscans want to be. And I think that like also there's this aspect of tech that I want so badly to be in ballet. You know, there's this, we could be the future by being here. We are on the frontier, and there's
so much collaboration that could be done.
Yeah, and there have been. You know, we did Mere Mortals last year, which was a ballet based on Pandora's Box. But it was done through. We had a company that was an AI-based company. Designing the visuals and collaborating with the musician Sam Shepard, that was his instruments were actually attached to some of the visuals. So like as he was playing, it was all happening, and then like the design of it would slightly shift depending on what he was playing. So it was this kind of like the first AI thing that we did.
I was recently in Barcelona for something, and the people I was at an event for, they organized a piano concert by Yo-Yo Ma. It's one of the famous pianists in the world, and he incorporated all these...
Cello.
Is he cello or piano? Cello.
Yo-Yo Ma, yeah, cello.
Cello, okay.
I'm sure he plays piano too, though. You know,
no,
I
think that he did piano that day. I think maybe I'll link the performance on this.
Yeah.
But he did have drone show, and he had like all these cool tech integrated into his concert. That was super. Like he had like his own mirrored twin actually performing with him. It was, I don't know how he did it, but I feel like this, you need more of the tech integrated into arts.
Yeah, it is. And it's like, I want that, but then I also go to some shows that do have that, and like it's not always pulled off to that degree, right? Because Yo-Yo Ma is the top. But if you're trying to do it within a smaller space or a smaller community of funding or whatever, there's a real struggle to get to that, like, we're pushing the boundary level. And so, like, luckily I work for a company that is like one of our mainstays as our mission statement, is like being on the forefront, the frontier of this art form, while still paying homage and participating in everything that has gotten us here.
Yeah. I think I stand correct. I think it was another Chinese, the world famous pianist.
Long Long.
Yo-Yo Ma. Huh?
Long Long?
Long Long.
I've performed with him.
His name with Yo-Yo Ma. So
I performed with him in Paris one time before. So I went to Paris with San Francisco Ballet. Before that, I went to Paris with Houston Ballet. And we did a short stint at the Champs-Élysées Theater with Long Long playing a full evening of Chopin. And we just danced for an hour and a half of his playing for 4 nights at the Champs-Élysées Theater. And I had a solo that opened the second act of the evening, where I was doing the solo to Long Long, like you're Long Long and I'm me. And I was dancing the whole thing. It's on YouTube. We can link that too.
We can link that. It's, I'm going to come to the end of the segment about being an artist here. I think one comment about going back to the tech and arts, I think a lot of the, language you find from tech. I mean, people make good money in tech, but they're like, hey, what did you do? Like, what did you make? Oh, I just built a product that made $50 million for Elon Musk, right? Like that. Yeah. It's not like very inspirational for a lot of people, because sometimes just making money is not the ultimate test of, contribution to society.
It feels
people are lacking meaning in some of the tech they're doing, unless they're building, hey, I built this awesome product for GoFundMe that helped raise another $1 billion for people, right? Like, cool. Like, people feel like that impact is there in their life, rather than, hey, I built this widget for Meta and I'm getting paid millions of dollars to do it, right?
I'm like, what did you just say?
So it's so I think people are they want more meaning in tech in general in the Valley, I feel, on what they do.
It's just an access point that makes, and it is a collaboration. I think that is the access point, to give the people a portal into their life. And I think that, like you doing this is an art form. I think this is a beautiful thing, to like step out of the tech world and into something that is kind of more exposing the sides of things that you don't know.
Launching in all the digital channels. We need tech to actually be an enabler to do things in life.
Exactly.
Right? So you can never say that people who contribute to YouTube, for example, I mean they've launched arts in ways that you cannot actually even contemplate. So people should be proud about all the work they did, actually bringing.
And so many, right? Everyone's a video editor now. Yeah. Just the same way as like when the pandemic hit, we all became janitors at work. Like that was like suddenly I was. Yeah. And so there is this like, you really have to weed out the people that have aspirations to really further the form that they're in. And I think that the honestly we're in a state in this city that feels like we're kind of weeding out the tech that doesn't believe in San Francisco, if I'm honest. There's people that are moving, going to other states or whatever, but that it's essentially kind of like trimming this tree that has really been blooming and growing like crazy. And then maybe we're better for it. Maybe we have more space to collaborate.
And if you look at the original values of tech. People who wanted to build something, who wanted to have a semiconductor company that's not, those old school semiconductor companies. They were all revolutionaries in their field, and people wanting to do new things the new way. So I do feel like the people who really are gonna bring the next innovation, they're not leaving. I mean, there's still a good place to be, and it's a great place to live, and
there's still gold somewhere in here.
Yeah, somewhere. I mean, it's not in the ground, but it's in the air.
It's in the air for sure, and I think it is the breath of air that you get coming to the West Coast, looking at that beautiful Pacific Ocean, and knowing that we are in a place that you're allowed to be yourself, be comfortable.
And it's sometimes in the minds of the other people we interact with. We want to be with like-minded, open-minded people, and who you can build something with or co-create something with. Well, on that note, I'm gonna end the second segment, and we're gonna come back after the break.
Great.
Welcome to our last segment of our conversation with Joe today. Call this segment Gardening and Parenting. So when you're not doing ballet, you're doing a few things. I mean, you looked like you got into gardening during pandemic. So how's that going?
It is like gardening and parenting. It is cultivating. We are cultivating a human and a garden, right?
Both are living things.
Yes, and they are very similar in their nascent years, right? So it wasn't pandemic. It was, well, I guess, potentially we all became gardeners during the pandemic. But it was actually an injury. I'm just getting over a torn ligament in my foot. And within that, there was one night that I had some people over in my backyard, and I had this like massive wall of 30 feet of bamboo that was just like taking over my world. And it was just like in this giant planter. And then like the whole backyard was just ugly rat infested bushes that I had no idea what anything was. And I felt this kind of like suffocation of not being able to use my space like I wanted to. And so I had some friends over, we were all outside, and this bamboo was leaning over us, and like just behind my friend's head was this spider that was like this big. Who knows what the hell that spider was, but it was like, okay, now I need to do this. Like something clicked. I had been wanting to redo
the Spider-Man in you now.
Exactly, yeah. Like it bit me, and I became a gardener.
Yeah.
No, so I just I looked at this project as something that I could physically do. I could keep in physical form in a way. Put on really hard bottom shoes that like supported my ankles and my feet, and just dig in literally, and just like tear it all down. That takes 2 seconds. And build it back up. That takes a few months. So like I've now been through a couple of months of injury, but also recovery and growth.
Is that common among ballet dancers, or the gardening fix, or is that
I mean,
Joe
I think
only thing,
honestly, men my age in ballet probably have some sort of...
but they don't admit it, probably.
Yeah, or they have some sort of like thing that they've gotten into because we have some more time because we're principals. We have like a little bit of time off of work.
Yeah.
Then you have a kid, and it's like, what do we do with that kid? We build something for them to do.
Yeah. What's your proudest cultivation in your garden?
It is so new still that I feel just very proud of like my curation with like, so we had been looking to do it professionally, and we were looking into every, like my wife was looking at all these different companies, and we were asking them, and every single thing was like at least in the minimum $40,000. And it was just like, are you joking me? Like, how can anyone So that was off the table. And then it became like, okay, so can you do a design? And then they were like, no, design is $10,000. And it's like, okay, well, that is not even my budget. And so it became, how do I do this? So I have like a guy that helped me build a fence. And I have the ability to access YouTube and the ability to just walk around this town and look at all of the crazy gardens that we live in. And like San Francisco is just the most fertile land that I've ever
and
existed
access
on.
to cheap labor through Home Depot. No.
Yes. No. And so it then became this this goal for me to like, can I actually design a garden and go through with it? You know, like there's a lot of times that I'll pick up a hobby and I will be like, that's my new life. And then 2 days later, it is nowhere to be seen. You know, like throwing pottery for one. My wife and I were both like, this is our new thing. And we went
pottery, it's hard to create that thing off of
it's
a wheel.
insane. It's insane. Like centering does not happen.
Yeah.
And we were like, we're dancers. We should understand centering a piece of clay.
It's a different muscle.
Totally different patience. But we tried that for a bit, threw it out the window when we were trying to park around this neighborhood. And we were like, there's no parking here.
Yeah.
Let's go home. But yeah, I've picked up a few things like that. But really, honestly, like this feels like a real... Like
are you more into
space
like
that can exist in.
Vegetables, flowering plants,
I have
bamboos?
I had so like the bamboo was this like anomaly that I left until the end. That was like, well, it's good, it's good shade, it's good privacy, whatever. But it was super messy and all that kind of stuff. And so I just kind of designed this idealized version of the garden with whatever shape I wanted. And then, maybe we could take out these planters that were built in. Maybe we could so I have this guy that's like amazing that does some work for me sometimes. And he just like came in and he was on an hourly rate. And I was just like, okay, can you do this, this, and this? And he'd be like, yeah, got it. Cool. Done. And so that was the fence and like the porch stuff. And then the rest of it was just me being like, all right, I guess I have to get some new soil. I don't want lead in our soil. I want our kid to be able to dig in there as much as she wants. And so then it was finding out what kind of soil you need. And then, okay, what's the kind of mulching? It's like, okay, I'll just maybe it's a rock garden. But then realizing that as soon as you put rocks onto everything, you can't move it. Like then it starts to mix with the soil and it's just a nightmare. So we have a partial rock with planters that were built that I just honestly 2 weeks ago planted some veggies in. And we'll see. Like yesterday I was out there trying to siphon off some mice that I had seen digging through them. My little baby lettuces are like getting dug around by mice. So I've now put on some nets and whatever. But the bamboo was absolutely the most meditative struggle I've gone through that felt so much like an injury, because it was like, how has this cancer spread to my whole yard? Like that's what an injury does to a dancer. And that is also what bamboo does if you don't control it. And I found that out. It was like a planter that was built in to our yard, and it broke through, the roots broke through and went all the way across the entire yard. And so I was just like slowly digging out stuff and then finding these massive plates of concrete and wood and stakes in the ground that were just in there from when they built the house. Like stuff that in that kind of industrial part of town, they just threw all their stuff that they didn't want and buried it so that they didn't have to go and ditch it at the
that's what they do when they sell the house.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's your do's and don'ts for a garden? I mean, since you're anyway being an expert here.
Okay, so do for bamboo is get an iron wrecking bar in order to jab into it and pry it open. Also do for bamboo is like spray it down as soon as you've cracked into it so that you get a little bit more of an idea of what the root system looks like. Mine was absolutely like nuts. And then I found one video that was like, put the end of one long root into salt water and it will just
kill the
rest of the plant
root system.
And it was it's a non-toxic version of weed killer that was honestly like a lifesaver in finding those roots going everywhere. And I just kept putting mason jars full of the saltiest water possible onto the ends of every bamboo root. And like the rest of the rest of my
any
like
don'ts
things. Yeah, well, don'ts. I'd say like don't get overwhelmed by every step of the way of at least if we're talking about redesigning your garden, because that is really what I've just gone through. It's not that I am a gardener. I am a gardener, but I'm a new gardener.
Yeah.
But
you're a constant gardener.
A designer. Yes, I'm a constant gardener. Yeah. Don't get overwhelmed by like, where do all these plants go and what do I do with X, Y, and Z? Because like once you go and find a good spot that has good plants and good taste, you should also find a person that can help you. And I think like gardening is a very communal thing, even though it's like everyone has their own individual space and garden, but you need advice and like, you got to tap into that like elder that we all are surrounded by.
Yeah. You might probably like to check out, I don't know if you've seen this, the documentary about Martha
Graham?
from Martha's Vineyard on Netflix.
About Martha Stewart, yeah.
Martha Stewart,
yes.
About her
gardens.
Have you
quote,
seen that?
Oh my God. I was like, she literally just said that and I'm like, that felt simulation to me. I was like, just had finished, because it was like around Thanksgiving when that came out and I had just finished the garden and it was like, she's saying that, what was it, like, if you want to be happy for a year.
Whatever. She had beautiful.
It was like dog lover garden or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
It was like but she had like pretty, I mean, what a what may about her, you think about her, she had beautiful gardens, you see her.
Beautiful everything. Like the way that she designed her life and created the space for her to be this like mogul that she is, and to like really like stick it to any of the men that were telling her no. And went to prison. And did her time.
Prison.
Well, what? But like, really, she did her time. At least these guys could do their time.
She did her time. Yes, that's true. Well, I mean, talking about gardening, another kind of gardening is parenting, as you mentioned.
Yes.
So our kids go to the same school, Waldorf. Is there a reason you picked that school? I mean, philosophies or...
I don't know about you. It was honestly through one of my wife's friends that lives in Atlanta, and she has 3 kids that have all gone through Waldorf, or continue to go through Waldorf, and it was on our kind of like wish list for things that we would want if we had a kid when we were thinking about having a kid. I think that like Montessori is one version, Waldorf is another version, and then there's like the immersion schools, and especially in SF, there's like a real like, what team are you on kind of thing. But when Sai was 3 months old, we signed up for a class that was like in Dolores Park once a week, and it was taught by Carmen, our friend that is also parent teacher, exactly. She's a teacher, and she's also we share a kid in the same class. But it was those sleepless nights, that moment, going to Dolores Park, being outside, and her just like singing these really calming songs and telling us these are some of the approaches that you can take when it's really tough. And like with a 3-month-old, we were taking it all as like, I don't know, she's just like a lizard right now. She's just like blobbing around. But watching the parents there and hearing what they had to say of like, oh, it helps so much XYZ.
What class was that?
It was a parent teacher parent baby class.
Okay.
And it was sponsored by the Waldorf school, but it was just run by Carmen, and she like had just gone grade 1 to 8, her first round of teaching the same kids 1 to 8, which I think that's also another aspect of it that I really enjoy, is like this kind of feeling of
constancy by a particular...
if you're fed into this thing, you can have a family all the way through.
Yeah.
And as much as we want to like siphon off and be like, your family is your family, it's like your family is everything that you make it. And I think that like the more that we can start that for our kids early on, the better. And Waldorf totally feels like Walnut Hill to me. Like it is that boarding art school vibe. It's got a little bit of like ritualism that is like exciting to me, where it feels kind of like witchy and like we are connected to the earth. And then there's this other side of it that is, just like a school that you can trust and know that they're going to get your kid to where they need to be for college or for whatever they're planning to do.
And also outdoors, right? Like they are spending most of their time,
I mean, we're
for
bundling
confined walls.
How long does it take you to put on how many layers she wears every day? It's like a 20-minute task of putting on all these layers. And then last week we were sending them into an atmospheric river, like essentially just being like, good luck. At least you're on a hill.
Yeah.
And then the tornado warning, all that stuff. I'm dating this podcast. I'm sorry.
I've seen this thing with my daughter where it's I'll be out like cold in like this, and she'll be like wearing the same layers as me, and she's totally a Waldorf kid, and she'll be like, no, I'm not, I don't need anything, and I can survive harsh winters,
Yes,
like
it's
that kind of feeling about like I'm tough for nature.
How did you guys find it?
A colleague, somebody I've worked with who sent 3 kids to Waldorf, and just checking out schools. What I really liked about it is they let kids be kids for some time. The world is going to mold your kids into, dreary, jaded human beings at some point. But if you can keep them kids for a little longer, and they'll learn ABCDs and 1, 2, 3, 4s after some time anyways in life. And if you can be just kids for some more time, and because kids ask questions and they are sort of curious and they are inquisitive and they like nature, and it's adults who are not really that
it's
curious
just about like
that. So
keeping the magic and like understanding,
and also right brain education. So I come from a very left brain education. I knew the all the facts and figures and capitals of the world by the time I was 6 or 7. And I knew a lot of facts about life and very little about my own self and the whole right brain at a young age. And if you look at when the logic builds in people's brains, you don't really start to reason until you're at least 7 years old. And so if you're feeling all this, you should do this because of this, kids don't understand. They still have these emotional brain that
there's no like.
So you might ask them to
connection.
develop the emotional side rather than the rational side until much later. So it just felt more fitting in a lot of ways at an early childhood education.
Yeah, and I mean honestly, like so much of what she does at home is like, mirroring what we do, right? So there is also this side of Waldorf that embraces common everyday living where like chores become what it means to be alive, right? So like there's this aspect of when I'm folding laundry or doing dishes or whatever, she often wants to participate. Yeah. And there's this thing of like, well, yeah, sure, if you want to, here, you can put these into that thing and I'll put this into there.
Yeah,
and
because which means that you're developing kids who don't need to be entertained or played some special movie to feel engaged in life. Yeah. You start being engaged with the regular things in life. And,
yeah, I mean, like the no screen thing on a plane is absolute like torture for parents, but actually like it is so like empowering, I think, to the kids that we're bringing here, you know, like into life.
Yeah.
Like
we'll
to
see
not
how long it
be
lasts
attached.
about,
I know. I mean, I know.
So what are your parenting do's and don'ts? I mean, philosophies or, you know, now that you're...
I'd say
a 3-year-old.
Do start going to therapy before you have a kid. That's how I felt.
Like individual or like combined couples?
No, well, I'm sure couples is great too. Yeah. I found that like us both separately, like Lauren had been seeing a therapist forever, and I always had this like,
I'm too cool for
school. So now I'm gonna go see a therapist.
Yeah.
Like I had this like,
what's wrong with me?
Well, yeah, I had this like this thing of when we'd get into an argument or a disagreement, I would throw it in there as a threat. Like, well, okay, well, I guess I just need to go see a therapist. And it's like, yeah, you do, dude. Like, go and see a therapist and go and embrace that side of understanding where we're coming from, what you are then transposing onto your little, you know, like, and so I felt this enormous pressure post-pandemic, kind of like getting, or like we were kind of still in it in 2021, that I just was like, I don't want to give to her. You know, I don't want to give any of the shit that she needs to like siphon out or discover later on.
Yeah. That's my biggest, if I can summarize my one philosophy about parenting is like put as less shit as possible into your kid. Because they're going to get shit, but I put as less as possible. Because
it's like
a lot of the learning in life through therapy is unlearning.
Yeah.
All the stuff we learned the wrong way in life, we're unlearning in therapy. Oh, these are all the baggage. These are all the wrong ways to think about things, and we're now
learning the unlearning too. It's like then also being able to constantly apply these new rules that you're kind of like deciphering through these sessions. So that's a do. I think a don't is probably just like don't bear down and be on their level, you know, like you have to, or no, it is like just don't be reactive in a way that like, I know that I am like a very, very hot, like I run like on the edge of losing it if there's like one little thing. And I think that's because I'm the youngest of three. And my middle, like the next oldest from me is 7 years apart. So like I feel like I kind of lived a single child, like an only child life, which I feel a little spoiled in that way. And so I just wanted to like stop having this like temper issue where it would be in the studio while I was rehearsing, it would be in the studio when I would or like when my friends would be giggling or whatever, I would like light up, and like that temper was like what made me in some ways. And I've kind of like siphoned that away to a certain degree, especially at work. I like, don't have that anymore. But at home, it is still the hardest thing because she knows exactly what's gonna get me, right? And
I
like
know your buttons,
and this destruction of parent is what they are built to do. And I think that like embracing that is something that's been really hard, but also extremely satisfying when you see a moment where it's like, oh, I met her and then we went. You know, like you have to find the imagination and the magic of being alive with such a young toddler in order to be able to bring them into what is a very oftentimes boring, ugly world, you know?
And you learn, sure, they learn from us, but I think what we forget is we learn so much from them as well.
Oh, constantly.
Various things.
And then as soon as they're asleep, I'm like, I wish she was awake so I could just give her a big squeeze. You know, like there's this thing of like nostalgia before it's even gone. You know, that is a big thing.
Yeah, still, you know, she comes back from school. It's still an occasion for celebrating. You know, it's hey, where have you been all this while? Sort of concept. Well, I'm gonna end this segment by asking you what's sort of your hopes and dreams for, I'm gonna say, your child. I mean, we're on parenting.
I hope that I can give her the wings that my parents did to me. You know, I think that there's a lot of things that you're unpacking in therapy, and oftentimes it comes back to your parents, but like a lot of times you can look at yourself the same way and just be like so grateful, at least for me. And I know that's a privilege and I know that's an honor that I have, but I also feel it's something that I hope for me to be able to like dissect or like, I don't know, like take out the part of me that's going to be the most beneficial, like take out and give to her the part of me that's going to be the most beneficial to her. And it's like, and it's not anything that I'm doing consciously, because like there's so much that you're doing consciously, and it's oftentimes just like the task of getting into or out of the car or whatever it is. But those moments where you're deciding, am I going to be a shithead to her? Am I going to like, talk down to her like she's somebody that is less than? And it's like, she's only less than because she's a fucking baby. Like there's no way to get around that. And so you just have to constantly keep coming back with love and reminding yourself that you're their only outlet and portal into this crazy, crazy world.
Yeah. It's a garden to be nurtured.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, thank you so much, Joe, for the conversation today.
Thank you so much for having me.
We will wish good luck for our kids and our gardens.
Yeah, hopefully they're in the school together forever.